Well, I guess we can get started. Welcome to Brainstorming the Human Connection with South Dakota Humanities Council. I'm on the road, so if you can, I'm right next to a truck, so I'm not sure if what the sound quality is going to be like. And I'm sitting in my sauna, sometimes known as a car, and it's 83 degrees. But today we're going to be talking about education. So if I were educated, maybe I would have found a better way. Oh, and caveat, my external battery power was supposed to be working for this computer. So, but for some reason it's not now that I need it. So if I drop out, it's because the battery dropped out, not because I don't like you. So we'll get this show on the road. Today, we're going to be talking about affordable higher education. And some of the questions we'll be asking is, does our society benefit from it, and how does it, and if so, how? Should a society encourage post-secondary education, and how? And should a society help make post-secondary education affordable? Now, recently, people have been discussing this like it's some kind of tug of war between trade schools and liberal arts and those kind of things. I want to say that I'm not making that distinction here. There's a case for both. There's a case to be made that in liberal education, it should be liberalized to teach people to do more things with their hands. And there's a case to be made that in the trade schools, people should be teaching more things to do with your head. Not that something's wrong with their head, but it's like they're not, it's focused mostly on the hands. But I think that there's something to be said, for example, if you're going to be a carpenter, learning how to operate a business as a carpenter, learning some, the code of ethics and why you're doing that, what's involved with customer relationships, or more psychology, but not that sort of like theoretical psychology, but practical psychology, things about marketing, how do you get along with customers, interpersonal relationships, all of those things I think should also be included in trade school. So when I say post-secondary education, I'm talking about those two in particular, and more general, just how do we educate people past high school, even if they're not taking formal education? What are the things that we can do to keep people being educated, keep people learning things throughout their lives, as opposed to get to high school, graduate? And I've heard people say, I'm glad I graduate now, I never have to pick up another book. And I think that means your education system has failed in the primary goal, which is to get you interested in education. Without that, of course, you have no hope. If you're not interested in education and learning more stuff, then you're probably not going to learn very much, if anything. So with that, I want to open it up to comments now. Does a society benefit from education? And if so, how? What are the benefits? Hello, anybody there? Kevin? You look like your mic is on.
Yeah. You touched on something that was kind of interesting. Back in the 70s, there was a move to shut down the engineering department at SDSU, because the feeling was, those who promoted that idea was that South Dakota Mines has this great engineering school. Why are we duplicating that education there? And I went to SDSU and in journalism. knew nothing about engineering, obviously, but I was one of the people that fought against that as a young person. And one of the arguments made on behalf of the SDSU education was that you get an engineering degree in both places, but you get a broader education at South Dakota State. Bigger school, more coursework, and especially at that time, Mines has done a lot now to expand their offerings of other courses in liberal arts. But that time it was mostly guys and very limited alternate courses in liberal arts and those kinds of things. And SDSU, of course, their argument, one of the ways they got to hold on to their engineering calling was there's a need for two types of engineering degrees. And that one was this broader education. I remember talking to the engineering dean, and he talked about the value of well-rounded engineers. Because when you go out, engineers, he said, tend to be linear in the way they approach things. And that sometimes causes problems because they don't consider the impacts of their engineering. They don't consider the human cost of their engineering. They don't consider what they need to meld together with their engineering designs, which are humanities, which are thoughtful approaches to society and how this will benefit them. That's a long way around to the importance, I think he argued, was that you can make these decisions on your education, and you'd hope nobody comes out of a higher education system and says, okay, now I don't have to educate myself anymore, but I'm afraid some people have. And obviously the higher education system, the vocational education system, extraordinarily important to our society. I guess the question is, how much money do we put into them? How much, and it's this timely thing because coming off of Biden's executive order and the forgiveness of some of the student loans, which I have mixed feelings about. I'm glad they tailored it towards low income people, kids, but the question raised is, how about the kids that just got done paying off their loans that sacrificed for that? And some of the students they had talked to yesterday said, this is just a beginning. We need more forgiveness. We need total forgiveness. So there's a bigger question. Is it so valuable that we should make it free? And what types do we make free? Hopefully we don't make Brown University a free education or Yale, but we make public schools, state schools free, first 2 years free. Where do you go with that?
Right. Very interesting points. I would say one thing is we make prison free. We don't get anything out of that, and we know that if people are educated, they typically don't go to prison.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems like we kind of have a choice. And the thing is, there are countries where even the private schools can't charge money. It's like for higher education. So that's why I started with, does the society get benefits? And I'd like to explore what kind of benefits do we get? So it isn't just a yes or no, but like to be fully aware of, does this help us all? And if it helps us all, why shouldn't we all support it financially? Kind of like a bridge, and to the argument that, or the case that you were making about, well, some people paid off and they struggle to pay it off. I guess I go back to the bridge model. There were times when people had to go around the lake and it took them an extra 4 hours or a day to get around the lake. And then people built a bridge. And so you say, well, what about those people who are all that suffering they did going around the lake, And so the new people, to me, if we recognize that we all get benefit from everybody being educated, the benefit that the new people that didn't get is they live in a better society. So now the question is there something we can do to help them? I mean, we can, and how far you go back. Those are kind of, I don't know, cocktail talk things, but at some point, if we think it's valuable to everybody, then it seems that a discussion about the cost is in order, I would think, but I'm kind of being kind of in some way devil's advocate here to look at that, to look at this question.
You remind me of when I was in school, I went over to see a friend of mine and he had a beautiful new stereo set. He was sitting there smoking pot, listening to some pretty good music. And I said, wow.
It sounds good when you're smoking.
And
At least you think it does.
I said, great stereo set. And he said, yeah, my student loan just came in. So first thing he did with his student loan is he went out and bought this great stereo set.
That's right, to help him study.
That allowed him to free up some other money to spend on things he wanted to spend it on.
I mean, there are cases to be made where people misappropriate good funds, but they do that even with funds that they earn. You know what I mean? It's like people do go to work at horrible jobs, and then when they make the money, I guess they feel so bad that they have to spend the money on something that makes them feel comparably good. And so they spend it on things that you think, oh, like that might have been a deferred gratification issue here. So anyone else on this question of whether or not or how, if you think it doesn't help us all, please feel free to make that case. Don't feel intimidated. I hope you won't feel intimidated, because it may be a case where you don't. Is there somebody who was trying? Is that Jace?
Yes, it's me. Good morning.
Because I heard it sounded like you were trying to get started, but your ignition wasn't taking off.
Well, I kind of feel like I have to say something, because I worked in higher ed for 33 years at Black Hill State. So obviously, I was invested and am still invested in higher education. But I guess I wanted to make a comment first that I'm hearing feedback when I talk now on my computer. Background noise or something.
I'm not hearing any feedback from you. Are you hearing feedback from someplace else? When you say feedback, are you talking about like squealing noise?
Like people talking in the background, like people.
Oh, really?
I hear that too.
I don't
know where it's coming from, but it's bugging the heck out of me.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't hear it when Lawrence talks, but I do hear it when everybody else does.
Right.
Because I shut them up.
You're able to stop the voices, huh, Lawrence? The rest of us, we can't stop the voices.
The voices in my head, I stop them when I start talking. Well, let's see if we can power through it, Dave.
Okay. Well, certainly for natives, I can speak mostly for native students, although I had many non-native students in my classes. American Indian students, I think, really benefit from higher education or a vocational school. And I used to encourage students if they wherever they went to school, I didn't VH or School of Mines or a VOTEC institution. I think that any kind of education that encourages the student to find his or her passion and encourages a student to better him or herself helps us as a society in the whole. It seems like if we have educated people that are able to talk about a variety of things and think about a variety of things, education, further education helps us to think. I always encourage folks to take a different language too, because when you take a different language, you learn more about other cultures and other ways of thought, and because you see the world in a different light. And that's what I think a liberal education or a specific education, whatever it is, it helps us all, because then we have folks that are thinking about not just ourselves or in the world, but the bigger world out there. And it opens up a bigger world for like I said, our Native students. I asked Taylor Christensen to come on because Taylor is the Native Student Advisor at Black Hill State University, and she has worked. She's working right now with young Native kids, and I just really appreciate her passion and her enthusiasm when she works with these young people. When she talks to them and engages them in the Center for American Indian Studies, the students, I can just see their eyes light up, and they just get excited about being there. And so Taylor is Native, and so she has that connection, I guess, with the students because of her age. She's younger, and also I think you can tell when she's working in the center there that she wants these kids to succeed. She wants them to be there. She wants them to learn and to know about themselves more. And you can feel that when she's talking to young people. And so I think the higher ed and further education helps our young people to find out who they are, and also so that when they find out their passion and get educated, they can share those talents and those passions with the rest of the world. There's no, it's a win-win for us to encourage young people to go on and get educated, whatever that passion is. So I don't want to monopolize here, but that's, I'm really excited about when I see young people starting their first classes and getting engaged. This makes my heart happy to see them wanting to expand their knowledge. Okay.
Welcome, Taylor. And I'm hoping that you'll join in this conversation and not just be a lurker. That's join in. So
Thank you.
I want to hear your feedback on the thing that Jace was, things that Jace was talking about. But I also would like to explore with you how the community that these people come from, how would they benefit by having members of their community get higher education, post-secondary education, whatever that is.
This was for me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name's Taylor Christensen. Like Jay said, I'm from Kyle, South Dakota on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I just started at Black Hill State. All of our incoming and new Native American students. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your question was how can we as a community member of the reservation at one point help these students, right?
Hold on. You were breaking up, so I didn't get the whole thing that you said.
Sorry. We're on the road. I'm headed to Montana, so if
I'm
I'm
on the
cut
road
out,
too.
I'm sorry about that.
Maybe we're going to the same place.
We're headed to the Flathead Reservation.
Oh no, I'm headed to Austin. That's
Oh.
different.
But yeah, like I was saying, your question was how can we as who once lived on the reservation help our students, right?
No, well, that's it. The question is, how does your students having a higher education, how does that help the community? And
Sure, yeah, just going off of what.
And an extension question is, does the community recognize and value their potential contribution?
Sure, yeah, I definitely think that a higher education is so important, especially for us to want to return home eventually and help our people. It's beneficial especially in today's world, that education is so important. And to be able to help, I guess, and to bring more prevention, I guess, back home and to our people. And like Jay said, I think we need more Native American educators or just educated individuals. And that's why I'm excited for this position, because I get to help them achieve that.
So can you talk a little bit about the value that a higher education brings to people in your community? Can you give some examples?
Yeah, let me sorry, you caught me off guard here. I'm thinking. I guess the value that it brings, I mean, back home, I guess just seeing my peers and stuff. And I just graduated with my undergrad back in the spring, and people were really proud. So it's really it's big. It's big to get a education, and people really admire that back home. And I hope that it encourages other people to do it. And I think that they just have to see that it's possible, that we can do it from where we come from, and that we're just as capable as anyone else too.
Okay. Well, and I value that. I value that. I'm being a kind of an objective kind of guy. I want to see. I'm looking for some examples of things that are brought back because a person learned those things in a formal education, and now they bring those things back and their contribution is valued. For example, let's say, for example, I grew up in that same community, and then I went out in the community and I learned engineering, and then I came back to the res, and I was able to help people to make their homes better, or to be able to spot design flaws that are engineering related, you know. So can you or let's say if I learned boat building, I could learn how to build a boat. I mean, I could share how to build a boat, you know, on Pine Ridge. I'm not sure what they would do with the boat very much, but if it was a big one. But the thing is like, are there skills that people are bringing back? Even like the skills of like teaching. Somebody gets a teaching degree, they come back and they have a whole different way of looking at teaching because they saw something different. What kind of things does any kind of education post-secondary, what kind of things could a person bring back to their community?
Okay, now I see what you're saying. I suppose if you built a boat, it could sit on the middle of our dams down there, but I guess just right off the top of my head, I'll go off at Jace, and I'm with my mom and dad, so, and they're both educated, and obviously Jace too. And I think that she got an education, and her way of giving back was educating future Indigenous students so that they too could do the same thing or whatever. And then my mom, she's an educator, so she went home and now she's a school improvement specialist at Little Wound School, and she spent 20 years at Little Wound, 25 years at Little Wound School. And my dad got a counseling degree, and he's been at home for about just as long, and he's now the
Oh, you're breaking up. Something happened.
EAP at Little Wood School and has helped a ton of people. for both of them that they
I think you're going on and off. Taylor, I think you're going on. Right now, your microphone is off.
okay, now can you hear me?
Now you're back on.
Okay, it keeps going in and out there. But I guess I just referred to Jace and my mom and dad and how Jace was an educator and she helped a lot of Indigenous students to go home, and that was her way of helping and using her degree and her education. And same for my mom and dad. My mom's an educator and she works as a school improvement specialist back home, and my dad's a counselor and he's helped lots of people. So I think just in any profession, as long as you help in some way, that it's making a difference.
There's some a unique insight to share with us, and so I'm going to be bugging you again. But are there other people who have? Can you give some examples of how a post-secondary education can be valuable to a community? What things do people who go, maybe they go away for their post-secondary education because, let's say in Roslyn, we don't have a university. And so, you know, they go away to university. If they come back, what kinds of things could they bring to us? Not just in terms of the thing that they studied, but in terms of how Sherilyn, are you saying something? Oh, guess we lost
She's
Sherilyn.
just joining in, I think.
Oh, okay. Who is that?
I'm clearing my throat again. That's really bugging me because I'm talking, then I can hear myself say it again.
Second, hold on a second. All right, there you go.
That's,
Try.
that feedback is really bugging me. I think I'm gonna have to sign off because I can't, that bugs me too much. I guess I'm an auditory person, so it's hard for me to, it's really bad. Sorry, Lawrence. I don't know what's happening here, but I'm sorry I put Taylor on the spot there. I didn't mean to do that when I asked her to listen in. I just asked her to listen in and she already had to talk. But what I'm excited about.
It's not you. We're gonna turn off my mic because I think the loop has to do with my mic looping through my audio system. So
Maybe it'll help. I think Taylor herself is an example of why higher ed is important. Taylor got an undergraduate degree, and now she's going on to get a graduate degree in counseling and in psychology at SDHC. And because she wants to give back and also to do more things with the people and to be not just an example, but to actually do some hands-on work to help folks who are struggling or help folks who are having a hard time with mental health issues, whatever it is. And when our people go off and get a diversity, a higher education degree or something where they can see the world in a variety of different ways, they bring those treasures back to wherever they're working, and it opens the world up for not only that individual but other people that individual touches and that is in contact with. And like her parents, you know, they've been working in education for years and years, and they have made an impact on those students, those young people that they have worked with. And so if we have a variety of individuals that come back, that, like even in engineering, your example, we've had young people that have gone on to get engineering degrees, and then have incorporated native design and native thoughts when it comes to construction of houses. We don't all live in square houses, so they've done a wonderful incorporation of how circular designs and layouts that reflect our culture and our way of life. And so the incorporation of native thought and non-native thought through higher education makes that person and other person and other people that person is in contact with, it opens the world up for many of us. When I went to higher ed, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and a lot of our native students are like that. They just know that it's important to be educated and to try to find something to make the world a better place. And I sound like I'm a contestant for some sort of contest or something, but making a difference in the world. And even if it's in I don't make the distinction between, you need to go to a college or you need to go to a trade school. Whatever the student's passion is, I think that's what that student needs to do, so that they can thrive and be the best that they can be in this world that we live in today. And so I'm excited when I see people. I have one Takoja, one grandchild that received a welding training, and he loves what he's doing. He loves working with a company where he's valued, and they enjoy his presence there. He's a pleasant young kid, and he loves doing that. And I have another Takoja grandchild who received a welding degree, and he incorporates art with. He does welding in the day, and in the evening he does art, makes art sculptures with his welding degree, and he loves doing that and making little different kinds of things to share with his talents regarding the art world, art field. And so it doesn't have to be just a one thing. It opens your mind to do all different kinds of things. And I'm going to stop there, because I could go on and on and on about the importance of education. But I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, Taylor. But Taylor, I know, will be a good counselor when she is a good counselor now with our young people. And
I'm not sorry. So are you hearing the feedback now, Jace? The rest of you, are you hearing the feedback?
No.
I think it sounds better now.
Oh, okay, good. I think I got the headphones to work. That's what I was trying to do before, but they weren't working. Okay, so I want to move to how, if we establish and we agree that, yes, it is beneficial to a community, I want to move on to how should a community encourage young people for post-secondary education, whether that's college or trade school or, life lessons or whatever, lifelong learning. How does a community create a value, a baseline value for ongoing continuing education post-secondary school? What are the things that could be done? Anyone? Kevin, you look like you're on the verge of saying something.
I might not completely understand the question.
Okay,
But I'm thinking, what you have me thinking is there must be a way that I think it's pretty well established that the higher the educational level of society, the lower the poverty rate, the lower the unemployment rate. And I don't know if that correlates, maybe you know this, whether it correlates as directly to a lower crime rate, lower incarceration rate. But I think there's some indication that's true. I know that if you keep kids in school up through 18, there's a dramatic decrease in crime by those students. I don't know if that continues with the higher education, with each year of higher education. I guess I haven't seen that, or I'm not aware of that. But it seems to me like any community, understanding that you're going to have less poverty, you're going to have less unemployment, and probably less crime. I mean, does a community come up with its own grant or scholarship program? Is it worth that to an individual community or an individual? You know, our state has limited. I wish we had more. We have limited scholarships. Some of them need-based, some of them academic-based, both. Could a community do that? Or is there a better way that a community could take that and implement it?
well, you know, actually what I'm thinking about is even before we got to cost, interest. You know, because I think it's a kind of academic point, if you will, about the money. If you don't have students who value it, and if that value isn't instilled by a community, you know, I'll give you an example. The community I grew up in, if you could dance well and sing well and perform, play sports, then there was a high value. People went to your game. In the community I live in now, when we had our high school, when we went to the national, to the state meet, we pretty much closed down the town. Everybody went to see the kids play. People showed up at the game, had no kids, but we showed up at the game. We showed that we had value for when those kids did that. When they did a play, pretty much the auditorium was packed. The kids went to like oratory, or if they went to like the science fair, and if the people came, you saw them looking at their watches to see. I thought it was supposed to be over at 7 o'clock and it's 7:15, you know? So that, I think that translates to a community that what we value is sports and performance art, but we don't value science and math. You know, like when the kid goes to the state science fair, this town doesn't close down. In fact, the kid's parents may not even go, you know? So I'm looking for like, well, okay, well, what are the ways that we could be encouraging and making kids feel like, hey, that's a thing, and we respect that, other than just telling them after they graduate, maybe.
Well, my business, journalism, has, even in its diminished state, still has a role in that. Maybe as you know, when they win the big game, that's all over the local paper. Maybe the local paper's obligation is to promote some of these science events or academic events in advance and cover them like a big sporting event.
I would say that would be a great start.
Yeah.
Any other ideas? I have some, but I'm trying to get you guys involved in this conversation. What other kind of things could a community do to signal to young people, even when they're in kindergarten or preschool, that learning is, and knowing stuff is is valued by this community? What kind of things are your community doing to say to young people, hey, man, that education thing, that's a big deal. You know? Well, I asked this question because my observation is that's our first challenge. Yeah, we should find some way to support them financially because it's going to take money. But I think that will come when politicians see that, hey, the education thing, how come you're not helping us there? Because the community has the same passion as if they closed down football. You know, if the state or a high school said we're not having no football this year or next year or the year afterwards because we're going to be doing science and math, you would have people trying to burn down the school and torch the teachers or something. You know, I mean, you can see because you can feel the passion that people have for that. You know, if a kid misses a pass, you see parents jumping up in the, you know, like you think they're going to have a stroke, you know, or if the referee calls a bad call, they're emotionally involved in that. You don't see that emotion at the science fair. You know, so what do we do to, if it's not going to be showing that emotion? What do we do as individuals or as a community? What can each of us do? What could you do to show kids that you think it's valuable that they keep learning?
Well, you've given me an idea right now on my own. John Thune always shows up for basketball games in South Dakota, and he never misses a state basketball tournament. So I'm going to challenge John to show up to the state debate tournament, to the all-state band tournament, to the all-state chorus.
Yep.
See how that goes. Because that's publicity, and that's our guy that passes laws, and you know.
Exactly. And challenge him to go to the science fair. You know, that challenge other people. You know, if you have leaders in your community, that people have like a Lions Club or they have like Rotary Club, they have all these different things. You don't see those people showing up at the science fair. You know, and just to go around and ask the kids questions about their projects. You know, not just the state ones, the local one too. Start at the local one. And then when they graduate, if they make it to the states, make sure you go out there and talk to them there. You know?
Lakota Invitational Tournament, which is expanded far beyond basketball, as you know, they have a wonderful science fair and one of the many other things they do besides sports. So,
where's that?
Here in Rapid City, the annual Lakota Nation Invitational. Used to just be basketball. Now it's expanded into traditional games and educational events and a science fair. So they do great stuff there. But again, I don't see any governors or members of Congress showing up there. They show up for the game, but they don't end up in the science fair.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason they show up at the game is because parents show up at the game. You know, and they're trying to impress the parents. I'm not saying they care that much about the kids, but you know, maybe they do. I'm not, you know, I can't say, but I know that that's an emotional thing. I'm just wondering how do we get that same level of emotional connection to science and math, since the students who do, you know, if students do well in science and math, that has a long-term effect on their lives. If they do well in sports, the long-term effect is they have injuries that they can reawaken when they're 30 and 40 years old and they can't move their knees. That's what they get out of it, most of them. Very few will ever make it to anything that pays anything like a bill, you know? But if they learn the science and math, even if they don't become scientists or mathematicians, that passion has woven itself into their personality when they're still there. They still have some plasticity in their brain. You know? So one of our esteemed panelists says that it's important first to speak positively about education in the home. Very important. Very important. And especially, I'll go one step further. Don't speak negatively about it, because a lot of people, when the kid stands up and says, tries to talk about something they learned in school, whether it's science or otherwise, especially adults who don't know that that thing, well, sit down. You're always trying to show what you know. And I think that those kind of comments negatively impact students, not just about that thing, but it negatively impacts students' sense of like learning that's a thing. That's an important thing. Yeah, Mary Beth is saying that her parents, even though they didn't have college degrees, encouraged them to go to college. I think even if a parent, because some of you may be still in the parents thing, and even if you're not parents, grandparents, or just neighbors, as an adult, if kids see you reading, and if kids see you trying new things and doing interesting things, it does not go unnoticed. It gives the kid who wants to learn, it gives them a permission, because it makes them feel less like a freak for wanting to know things and try things. So that is one level of encouragement. Mary Hogg says, years ago, South Dakota, 2/3 of secondary education was funded by the state. Today, the state's contribution to post-education institution is 1/3. We need to, that might be an area in which we can explore trying to do better, is get more funding. And that's certainly a thing. What are some ways that we could increase funding? I mean, the state could like pass it in the budget or something like that. But usually they're going to need a catalyst, somebody to say, hey, get this done. What kind of things could we do other than call our legislative people? What kind of things could we do to encourage more participation from the legislators in funding education?
Get an entirely new legislature.
That's a good start. Well, yeah, that's one way. It's not the easiest. It wouldn't be the easiest thing I would think of, but it's a thing. We could do that. But I find that legislators are followers, not leaders. So what can we do to make them feel like, if I don't do this, I'm going to be out?
Well, we had a governor a while ago, a conservative Republican governor, Dennis Dugard, who was willing to push hard to raise the state sales tax for teacher pay, elementary and secondary. I don't think we have a governor now that would push hard to raise money for higher education. I don't sense that she has a strong commitment at this point to education, especially higher education, unless it's to talk about the critical race theory that doesn't exist in our system.
I preempted.
Way preemptive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, that's a struggle, but I think you continue to raise that with lawmakers and with the governor and continue to challenge them, and know that people out here think it is a priority, even if we're outnumbered as people out here.
Okay. Anyone have, to piggyback on Kevin's point, anyone have some ideas of ways that might stimulate the people that we have in politics today to rethink what, how they approach education. Anybody? Well, Mary Beth has some ideas she's put in the chat. I'll say again, I've said it here before, I have a really hard time doing the reading thing because my dyslexia will kick in and she'll be saying things that she didn't say.
I can read.
So
I
maybe
can
Karen,
read it for you,
Karen can
Lawrence.
help her out.
Yeah, I can
Go
read it
ahead.
for you. Okay, it says, good morning. I am born and raised in South Dakota, but at the moment I am working for El Paso Community College in Texas. One of our strategic goals is to drive student success, and one of the related outcomes is to promote a college-going culture. While we have several initiatives supporting that outcome, scroll up. One is for the college to adopt area elementary schools and to encourage the students to realize that they have a viable option of going to college. The college offers workforce certificates and Associate of Applied Science degrees, in addition to Associate of Arts and Associate of Science degrees. Our college works with local school districts and the University of Texas at El Paso to align K through 16 education.
Excellent, excellent point. And I'm going to add to that, oh, I guess about 10 years ago in the scientific community, there was this kind of reckoning that we as scientists weren't doing enough to engage young people in science, and we were too much in the ivory tower, and not just young people, the population in general. And that our conversations were too incestuous. And from that, there was some initiatives, and they still are going on, of citizen science. And there are a number of initiatives that people have opened up on the internet for people, ordinary people who have no idea about a subject. If you like birds, there's a project for you where they do like bird counting. And then the value of that comes in, one, you learn a lot about birds just through the conversation in that citizen science project. And two, because people are counting birds all over the world, you get to learn something about birds you will never see in real life because you may not go to this one little hole that the birds exist in New Zealand, but there's somebody out there who's counting them, takes pictures, takes an audio recording of what that bird sounds like. And so even though you've never seen the bird, you are now aware of a bird that you never would have thought of before. And that's happening as far as like astronomy, where people are saying, look out your window on this day and tell us what you see around the world so that we can correlate X, Y, and Z. It happens in microbiology where people are doing research, but they need people to help them count some little minute things that are happening because they don't have the processing power as far as computers to do that. And they hook all these people together, and you get to be part of that conversation. And in part of that conversation, you learn about science. Those are some of the kind of things I think that we can get the population involved in learning about those things. For example. Any other ideas of how we can encourage our populations and in the process, potential students to further their education, not just in science and math, whatever they're studying. How do we encourage lifelong learning? I guess is the fundamental question.
I just have a comment on that
Cheryl?
in the respect that I think we have a responsibility as adults to be the lifelong learner and be the example. And I guess in regards to anyone that believes they're in power, whomever they are, in a business, in government, my question to them would be, are they a lifelong learner, and how are they a lifelong learner? You know, how are they remaining open? Because again, I think our kids need to see us pick up the book and need to hear us ask thoughtful questions. That is what's going to make them curious, because isn't that really what we want them to do to continue their education? Is we want them to be curious. And that's, as an adult, that's what keeps us learning, is if we're curious. So for me, it's like Kevin said, it's kind of like that challenge. To me, it's a great challenge to ask anyone running for office or applying for a job, how are they curious? How are they continuing to learn?
What can you think of, Cheryl? I really appreciate your point. Can you think of something that an individual citizen could do to challenge young people to be curious, or to just look at things different, realize, oh, I didn't even know that thing was there. What are some kind of things that we could do to draw attention to that? And please, the rest of you, think of some things too.
Well, I don't know if I really have an answer to that, other than I think it's about doing things intergenerationally with kids. I think like community ed programs are an awesome way to do that, to help support continued learning and curiosity, and have people try things. Sometimes we get, especially as we grow older, we may become more opposed to trying and failing. And so I don't know that I really have a direct answer to that, other than I also think that it's okay for kids to fail. And I think it's okay for us to fail, and then say, well, how can we do this a little bit different? So I don't know that I have a great one person scenario, but I will say, just to speak for myself, is I was married very young. And as a grandmother, I did go get my degrees. And I'm very proud of myself for doing that, because I put it off and put it off for myself. And I hope that by itself said to grandchildren that you can do whatever you want to do at any time.
Okay, now I'm on. We're right at the end of our session here today. I want to thank all of you for your contribution. I really appreciate that point, Sherilyn, and I want to encourage all of us to start thinking about the ways that we can catalyze not just the young people, but our whole communities in lifelong learning. What kind of things can we do to make that a thing in our communities? And especially, as one of my mentors used to say, do things where they can be things, where they can be visible, and encourage young people, you know, in a setting that encourage young people to say, huh, how did you do that? Why did you do that? And then, as you say, support the cases where they don't really come through every time either. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Please join us next week, where maybe we'll have a better connection, because I'll be in a regular or something closer to a studio instead of in my Sonic car.